All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of the Workbench, your resource rich weekly podcast and newsletter for local service entrepreneurs. As always, the Workbench is brought to you by Lead Truffle, the number one speed to lead service for local businesses. Today, I'm excited to be joined by Corrie Morley. She is the owner of Koala Installation Denver, which is a pretty, at this point, big installation franchise. And she's running things in the Denver territory. So, really excited to dive into her experience, going into the installation business, joining Koala, which is part of Empower Brands, and we've spoken with some folks from the Empower side on here, so it'd be good to, kind of get everyone's broad perspective on the system, and just really kind of generate some learnings here. So, Corrie, for folks who may not be, familiar with you or Koala Installation, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and your business?
Sure. So I own and operate Koala Installation of Denver. So we are one of four franchises or franchisees in the Denver metro area. We launched in 2022. So we just hit our 3 year mark. Um, let's see. We started with Koala before it was part of Empower. So the Empower brand coming in and taking over for Koala it's been hugely beneficial for us as far as like a franchisee and a franchise owner. Um, Huge strides, huge difference from being individually owned. So that's been
Hmm.
great. Um, yeah, we've been doing it about 3 years. My husband and I own it together. I basically call it his brainchild and my empire. So here we are.
Nice. And what were you doing before Koala Installation?
So immediately before this, for when we launched it, even I was working in software sales. And then prior to that, I spent 15 years in hospitality pre-COVID. So I basically didn't have a job when COVID rolled around, and we just come from a pretty big lineage of blue collar workers, and we were like, all right, let's try our hand at insulation and trial by error. And now I speak fluent insulation and taking over the Denver market. So here we
Yeah.
are.
What were some of those early learnings for you in terms of getting up to speed, going from hospitality to tech sales, and then into an industry that I would guess had very little overlap with those? What was that like? Kind of getting up the learning curve on that.
I mean, I wouldn't change it. I think it would be a very different like business model if I wouldn't have come from hospitality. So a really big differentiator, especially in our market, is customer service, which is always like that's like the main part of hospitality is like, all right, how do you do customer service? How do you go above and beyond? How do you just set the expectation? And so that bleeds everywhere in our business and in how we've operated things. We actually just revamped our core values, and it's basically like our top one is people first. So whether that's our employees, whether that's our like ourselves, whether that's the brand, whether that's customers, it all bleeds together and is taking care of people is ultimately what it came down to. So even though it's not related in any means, it is deep in our culture now with the hospitality piece of it. So,
Yeah. Yeah. And then just, stepping back a little bit, I think people would be curious. I'm curious to know, like, what is the core of the insulation business, right? Is it putting insulation in new builds? Are you fixing stuff at people's house? Like, for the layman who's not familiar, like, me, what exactly is the core business model?
so for Koala in general, it was mostly residential. So insulating existing homes. So they say like 90% of homes are under or not insulated well at all. So that was kind of the cornerstone of the franchise when we started. And now we have so many spokes in the wheel to diversify to just stay busy all year round. There are some markets where it's still the case where they can pretty much be profitable off of residential only, but we kind of do everything. I have a hard time saying no, especially to something that we can problem solve and take care of someone. So we do a lot of commercial, so actual like true like okay, we're going to OSHA job sites and doing new construction, but then we work with a lot of local small general contractors that are building custom homes or doing remodels or restoration work. We have a couple of partnerships with like pest control companies and HVAC companies that are also seeing addicts and energy efficiency come into play. Um, a really big strategy for us is local utilities. So our energy company does a lot of rebates for work in existing homes. So that's another really big market for us out here too. So it's diversified, but a good chunk of it is just existing residential homes and making them more energy efficient.
Cool. What was building the team out like in the early days? Was it just you and your partner? Have you guys scaled up that team? I'm curious about the hiring process for building out a company like this.
So it has been a roller coaster to get to where we're at right now. For our first year and a half, it was myself and 2 installers. I ran everything outside of the installs, although I did have to call in sick a couple of times and drive the truck and the trailer to a job site. But um, about August last year, we took on a pretty large commercial project and went from um, those 3 to over 12 employees, and right now we have 10 installers, 5, like, office staff, which is, like, an admin answering the phone to an in-home estimator to a commercial and warehouse manager and a business development person, so we are quickly approaching the 20-person mark now, but the first year and a half was interesting and a heavy learning curve, but I would say, at least in this business model, is how do you hire a position you don't know how to do? So I we hired really heavy at the beginning, not knowing what we didn't know. And when those folks left, I was like, all right, I'm going to teach myself. And that's what happened. And then we were strategic and hired pieces that I was the pain point for the business of, all right, we can't do more jobs because I can't get on enough job sites or I'm doing too much of certain things. So then we started hiring for those positions. So we have an ops manager, we have an in-home estimator, like all the things that I initially did. Now we have like full-time roles for every one of those.
Yeah, let's talk about the process of franchising compared to starting your own business. I think that's a crossroads a lot of people come to, and we've talked to a lot of franchisors and franchisees, and then just independent business owners on here. What kind of led you and your husband down the route of franchising compared to, say, starting your own business? What was the pull for you in that direction?
So I'll go back to my whole phrase of it was his idea, his brainchild, and now it is my empire. So he is a serial entrepreneur and just always wanted to be in business for himself, which is funny because he's actually not in the business full time. So he
Hmm.
has a full time corporate America job and helps on the side, but actually is really helpful. He's actually working from our office today for his day job. So he's here operationally and helps on the back end, especially with like business strategy and stuff like that. But ultimately, he we decided that we wanted to bet on ourselves. So we had this big old 401k that he had sitting there from a corporate job. And we're like, just saw it losing money because it was just hanging out. And we're like, all right, what are we going to do? He and I both come from pretty long lineages of blue collar workers, so we were like, "Ah, we could do it. We've got we have family that can like help shed some light on these things." And so um we took over the installation stuff and it was a it was an interesting development of those things, but um, ultimately, we decided on a franchise instead of just starting it from ground up because there was a lot of that infrastructure already done. Like, I come from a lot of sales and marketing, and I was like, I don't want to come up with a brand. I don't like, we don't even know a market that we would go into. And a lot of that's kind of already built out for you when it comes to franchising.
Yeah.
And so that was a huge pull for us, which is really funny because I've had conversations with other business owners. And they're like, that's why I didn't want to do a franchise because they wanted more autonomy with things. But I would say, based on the structure, especially for Koala, we have a lot of autonomy, but there's also a brand backing that. So even though it's this national brand and national recognition and a lot of things that the franchise does for you, there's like we still get to operate it the way that it's beneficial for us and how we want to see the culture here.
Yeah. Yeah, love it. And then from what I understand, you started with just one territory, but then you've kind of expanded and taken on folks who are operating other koala installation territories in and around Denver. Can you kind of talk us through that sort of acquisition expansion process?
Yes. So we launched October of 2022 was like our first job. We were the fourth one in the metro area that launched. And then a year after us, there was one way far north that launched. And then there's one way far south that launched last year. So he just hit a year. So last year, about this time, there were six franchise owners. We had been in talks with, there was a southeast location, southeast Denver. We had been in talks with him since about May. He wanted to retire and was trying to find a way out. And so we had come up with a plan to basically take over his area. That acquisition was finalized in January of this year. And then the Denver Central location stopped operating last year and they re released those zip codes back into the system and we purchased those in May. So this time last year, we were about 22 zip codes and three territories. And as we sit today, we're at 81 zip codes and nine.
Love it. Love it. Awesome. Cool, Corey. Anything we didn't cover here that you wanted to get to today?
Not really. I think
No.
the biggest one is just getting your hands dirty and just, figuring out the reason why we started a business, whether it was a franchise or not, was we took the good and the bad, like making sure we didn't do the bad things that we saw in corporate America or even small business, and making sure that we're taking all of the really good things that we saw or how we would want to treat people. And it's really that people first mentality of a franchise isn't just an investment. It's like a lot of hard work to see that investment come to fruition, but ultimately like it's reaped its rewards.
Love it. Corey, for people who may want to connect with you personally on the web or your business, what's the best place for people to find you on the internet?
That's a good question. Maybe LinkedIn. Email's pretty good. If you need me to share all of that, you're welcome to. Email is usually the best because then when
Yeah.
I respond, you get all of my personal contact info.
Nice.
Uh, but those are probably the best ones because
Okay.
we've got some other people that answer our work phones. She's a pretty good gatekeeper, so she might not give you the keys to my contact info.
All right. Well, Corey, we appreciate you making some time from your busy day to chat with us here at the Workbench, and hope you have a great rest of your week.
Awesome. Thank you for having me.